So Batman Caped Crusader came out not too long ago, and when it comes to this bold show, the creator actively took steps to differentiate itself from all the different iterations of famous Batman characters. Like for example, Batman opting to weaponize Alfred instead of seeing him as another father, and the addition of characters he couldn't previously use in the last show. So out of respect for the legend, let's be different too. Instead of just reviewing the show, let's go over these specific points and analyze the similarities and differences between the first season of Batman Caped Crusader and Batman the Animated Series. Then towards the end, I'll give my final verdict for the show. Let's get to it.
I said leave it!
So let's start with the animation style and Gotham itself. Right off the bat, of course they have a lot in common. Both features a 1940s style Gotham filled with Art Deco, architecture, and film noir aesthetics. But in the animated series, it goes the extra mile with it. It incorporates lots of geometric shapes, dark color palettes, and dramatic lighting reminiscent to that of 1940s detective films. The colors are so dark and muted actually that you'll almost never see a sunny day in the show. And the hand-drawn animation gives everything a classic and authentic feel. Batman Caped Crusader, on the other hand, took those elements and modernized it with the use of advanced CGI and digital compositing, which is why even though the background looks hand-drawn at times and has different grains and textures, Batman's movement is still incredibly fluid, since Bats' character layer is on top of the background layer, which of course was a limitation of the hand-drawn style of the 90s. This show also has actual sunny days, which I'm not used to seeing in a Batman show low-key. And there's no computers anywhere in the animated series. Like, the technology is extremely limited, showing that it wants to be as realistic as possible to the time frame it's in, which is cool. And even though I appreciate and really like this new style, I've still gotta give the first point to the animated series because it's just too iconic. But I really appreciate all the work the animators did on this. Like, the fight scenes are way more fluid and really good, especially the fight with Gentleman Ghost. Next we have the themes, and y'all might hate me for this. One has Batman stalking and fighting criminals, and the other is being a detective and interrogating people. One uses dramatic colors to catch your eye, while the other ups the noir factor, and is cut straight from an old detective film. This is completely subjective. Let me know which theme y'all like the most. But me personally, I have to give it to the Caped Crusader, bro. This is a banger. When I was a kid, I never cared for this theme, and this is bad. I liked it, but when I was younger, I never cared for the theme because I just liked Justice League's theme more. So my kid mind tuned it out. Crazy, I know, but Caped Crusader won this one for me. But now let's move on to the bulk of the video, the differences between the storylines and the characters. And spoiler alert for anyone that hasn't seen the show yet. To be honest, it's hard to compare them actually, since the animated series had a whopping 65 episodes to work with in the first season, while this new show only has 10. But when it comes to this show, the episodes still hit, but not quite as hard as the animated series for very specific reasons. For one, the low episode count. There's a lot more Batman in the animated series, it's him being a detective, fighting other crazy people, and telling stories that are honestly ahead of its time in this unique style. The episodes themselves are well thought out and told to where adults and kids can understand what's going on. While this new show does something similar, but its approach to storytelling is more grounded. He's still being a detective, and he's doing a good job at it. But gone are the days when you see Batman's story unfold by someone else's point of view. Like when the cops tell stories talking about what happened during a crime scene that involved Batman, or when the villains all told stories about him.
Hey! There I was, holed up in this quarry. When Batman came nosing around, he was getting closer, closer.
And?
I threw a rock at him.
This show is more realistic, mature, and focused, and the animation style complements that. And it also makes the more fantastical scenes, like that knockoff Scooby-Doo villain, Harley Quinn's reveal, Natalia and her soul-sucking, well, I shouldn't say that, spectral vacuum going on. It makes these moments meaningful and even more creepy. And the music supports scenes like that really well too, just like the animated series did. So for now, I'll have to give them both a point since the 90s cartoon just had more to work with, and I think the new show has so much potential to be even better. Now, let's finally compare the characters. Let's start with the cops. And in the Caped Crusader, the police force is straight up corrupt, and that is amazing. Because number one, that's how it is in almost every Batman comic there is. And two, we never got that in the animated series. Everyone on the force was straight-laced. So seeing Gordon deal with corrupt cops like Flash from the comics in Batman Year One and Crooked Bullock, while at the same time learning to trust this new version of Batman, which is also something that doesn't happen in the 90s, it's honestly pretty cool. Montoya is getting more shine, which is nice, because you never really see her in the animated series. And when it comes to Barbara, I gotta admit, and I love Batgirl, but she reminds me of Kim Wexler from Better Call Saul. And I gotta say, I think I love that show even more. With her doing pro bono cases to give criminals a second chance, and her fighting against a bunch of people without any kind of training, or at least any training that we know of, like she just feels more fleshed out and complex. Whereas in this specific show, she's more of a heroic college student. So when it comes to the cops, the winner goes to the Caped Crusader for me. Now it's time for the villains, and let me know what y'all think in the comments too, like which one's y'all's pick. First, Catwoman. In the animated series, she was Bruce's equal in every way. Both were extremely wealthy, classy, and had altruistic motives behind their actions, with her being an environmental activist and all. And she just liked to steal for fun sometimes. Whereas in the Caped Crusader, she was born wealthy, but was going broke, and started stealing to keep herself and her assistant afloat after being inspired by Batman. There's little to no romance between the two because of Batman's attitude and because they just aren't equals anymore. They're actually opposites in every way. To him, she just looks more like a pretty crook than anything. Whereas in this show, Batman liked her the moment he saw her because of her finesse. So the animated series Catwoman beats out this version for me. The Penguin though is wild. Like she's a man-eater, bro. And she killed her kids. She's so ruthless. I never would have thought I needed a gender-bent penguin in my life before until today. I'm sorry, but I have to give this point to the Caped Crusader because Penguin is just Penguin, he's cool, but I never took him seriously in this show. The only time I actually ever did was with Gotham. But this show made me do that, and I appreciate that. I respect it. Firefly is next, and he is actually really legit in this. Like, we see how much of a disturbed man he is. Beautifying a world where men, women, and children are playing in the world of fire. It's really offsetting and creepy, which is something I never really felt about any version of Firefly before, let alone in the new Batman Adventures when he was just someone that wanted revenge against his ex. So this goes to the Caped Crusader, Clayface. These two are extremely similar. Both are very talented actors, and both started to do bad deeds because they had a really bad looking face. And that's either because of an accident or just from being born that way. The real differences lie though in how they're presented. The first time we see this man, he impersonates Bruce Wayne of all people. So his debut was about Batman finding who in the name could have done that. And it was interesting because it was personal. Plus seeing the shock on Batman's face after the transformation to Clayface and how he was defeated by making his powers work against him is 10 times more interesting than a couple haymakers to the face. But what's cool about this new version is that he's inspired more from the original Clayface, Basil Karlo, who also had a clay-like mask and went around stabbing people. And from the show, his motivations also spawned from this woman. Still though, nothing beats this version of Clayface. Like, he is the best version there is and will probably have that title for years to come. Now Two-Face. And to be honest, this is really close, but the animated series is still the winner here by the smallest of margins. This didn't always have a split personality going on, versus here when he developed it through psychosis after a weird but more believable accident. Once he couldn't control it anymore, a crazy chain of events happened to where the outside matched what he was feeling on the inside. And after the accident, he was so split that he used his coin to make every decision since he always wanted to do both the right and wrong thing at the same time. Versus here when he was already morally corrupt from the start of the series, and over time became a better person, more or less after the accident, and even died a hero. He was very pure-hearted when it came to his desire to save the city. And that's what makes his death so tragic, because Alfred was right. Like, if it wasn't for Batman, he wouldn't have died. But at the same time, if it wasn't for their actions, he also wouldn't have been on the path of redemption. And it's sad, but still really cool too, and that's what makes this so close for me. But still, I have to give it to the animated series because, you know, I really like when he's a villain. Natalia and the Robins. Funny thing is, she's actually a canned villain from the animated series. She was supposed to be a blood-sucking vampire that also turned Batman into one too. The creator of both shows, Bruce Timm, wanted to include Natalia, aka Nocturna, in the series, but it consistently got shut down by Fox Kids, saying that it wasn't appropriate for children. So I'm glad he was able to bring her into the show, and I don't really think I have any complaints on her. Like, it's weird that she's a vacuum since this is supposed to be like a more mature kind of show, but I still don't mind it. It's cool. I hate that the Robins are just here though, bro. And they didn't do anything with them. Like, this is for sure the worst part about the show for me because this shot down every single Robin dream I had for the show. So yeah, the animated series wins here, bro. Like, I'm so mad. But what I did like was Harley Quinn. And yes, she is race swap and doesn't look as conventionally attractive as she normally does. But I don't care. Who cares, bro? Like, she's creepy as, and I love it. How she takes the bad apples of her clients and constructs complicated prisons for them as punishment for their sins is amazing and honestly deserves its own video. It's really nice to see a Harley that's not connected to the Joker, or at least not right now, especially after she's everywhere nowadays. So yeah, this is a breath of fresh air. I'll always love the OG Harley, but I gotta give it to the Cape Crusader in this. I can't rank the Joker yet, but I love his new voice. Onomatopoeia looks really cool, though I wish we could get more from him. And last but not least, we have Alfred and Batman himself. In the animated series, he's already been through a good amount of emotional healing and has had a lot of contact with loved ones other than Alfred. Don't get me wrong, he still has a lot of flaws, but because of him being more mature, he's also more compassionate and willing to show others how he feels. Versus this Batman who has way more flaws. And the first big difference is his childhood. Lil Bruce had the Eren Yeager going on. This hatred is so strong that he shuts people like Alfred out, keeping everyone at arm's length. Versus the animated series where he's always been vocal about his affections towards Alfred. This Batman also does not like to show his emotions, having normally expressed them through actions. What's also interesting is that you can really tell that being Bruce Wayne is a front in this. Even Harley pointed it out. But low-key, I could tell before that. Let me know if y'all could too.
Guess it's not a yacht party until someone falls overboard.
Uh-huh. Excuse me.
Bruce Wayne, what happened to you?
Guess it's not a yacht party until someone falls overboard.
Like, you never thought about it whenever you were watching the animated series, but even till this day, but you could in this show. This version still has a lot to learn, but that's what makes him so interesting. Plus, he has an awesome costume. But hey, you know, even though it's close, I gotta give it to the animated series, bro. Like, it's just the nostalgia. And after tallying up all the coins, the winner is Batman the Animated Series for the better versions of characters. At least in my opinion, of course. All in all, this show is pretty good. It's a great spiritual successor to the animated series, and I love how it tries to differentiate itself from the rest of the Batman shows. And though there are parts where it could be improved, you know, like it would be nice to have a bit more stylization and other things like that, I still really enjoyed the series, and it has a lot of replay value. So my final verdict for season 1 is an 8.6 out of 10. Let me know what y'all think though down below, and I'll catch y'all in the next one. Peace out.
Empire!